Good day, everyone. This is the Cosmic Consciousness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Sage. And today we have the pleasure of having a conversation with someone that I met just about a year or so ago when I was searching for energy medicine. And some of the peer reviewed articles that I looked at that I actually provided to my cardiologist. Discussed the Donna Eden method. And so we are going to discuss those ins and outs with Virginia Lee. And here is a brief bio on Virginia Lee. Virginia Lee is an Eden Energy Medicine clinical practitioner and certified process healing method MAP coach. And MAP stands for Make Anything Possible. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. After earning a doctorate in pharmacy, which is a fascinating piece that we're going to pick up on, after earning a doctorate in pharmacy from the University of Florida, she moved to Colorado in the early 2000s. Through her personal trials and tribulations, she has developed resilience and is eager to share her journey toward higher consciousness. So, welcome, Virginia. I'm so glad that you agreed to do this. Even though we've only had a couple of encounters, I've felt really comfortable inviting you to do this and feel comfortable in our connection. And hopefully this will be fruitful for lots and lots of folks. So the first question that I actually kind of came to mind after I had met you and had thought about what might be possible for this podcast was your own personal journey, which you've listed on your website. How is it that you came into energy medicine in general, but maybe the Eden method in particular? And actually, I didn't even think about this. A lot of people that may be listening probably don't know much about the Eden method. So if you want to describe a little bit of that'd be really cool, really helpful.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you so much for the invite. My journey has definitely been discovering and experiencing so many levels of consciousness. So I love the name of your podcast, and I'm excited to see who else the universe brings here. So thank you for that. Eden Energy Medicine, I didn't find it. It actually found me by the grace of God. It was during a very traumatic time in my life. Yet my only focus was saving my son's life because I had a habitual behavior of pouring from an empty cup. So to kind of put a perspective, I recall a podcast that you had with your friend Pat. You guys talked about the Hawkins map of consciousness. Just to put this in perspective, I was probably running about a 20 to 50 level of consciousness for the 17 years prior to this traumatic event. So just to kind of give you an idea of the priming before this occurred. But I was totally unaware of that because I thought that was the way life was. I had a lot of childhood trauma. It was normal to see substance abuse and domestic violence in my household. It was kind of a way of growing up. And then that familiar energy led me to a very difficult marriage, but that was all very covert, kind of like the frog in a slow boil. You know, you don't know it's happening and then bam. So as you mentioned, I did start off in the Western medicine realm as a pharmacist. In about 2004, 2005, I went part-time to raise my boys. I have two boys that are young adults right now. And I wasn't really aligned with my career at the time, but my focus was on my family. So I went part-time. And my boys and I we were seeing a chiropractor on a regular basis. And I was also seeing an acupuncturist at the time. So around 2016, this misalignment was just kind of screaming at me. And I really enjoyed seeing the acupuncturist. He actually still works here in Centennial, Colorado, Kurt Wick in Southlands area. He was just really amazing. I would go and I just loved his perceptions and his demeanor and his bedside manner. he had so much knowledge. And now looking in hindsight, now that I'm aware of energy, I know that he was just really on a high level of consciousness. So just being in his presence was healing. And he really got me interested in the traditional Chinese medicine philosophy of the five element system. And so I embarked on enrolling at the Colorado Chinese Medicine University here in Denver on Colfax. And so because my education was so old, the prereqs would not transfer. So I had to start rounding up some prereqs. So I was taking some science classes at Arapahoe Community College and also auditing a course at the acupuncture school. And so fast forward a year later, my younger son, who was 12 at the time, started getting really, really, really sick. He was having migraine headaches, hallucinations, dizziness, emotional outbursts, low blood pressure. It was really difficult. And 5 doctors later, we came across a functional medicine practice that diagnosed it as mold toxicity. And we can go totally on a tangent on mold toxicity, but that's not what I want to do. So this functional medicine office really misguided us on the detoxing, and we got way sicker before we started getting better. And so just to kind of give you a little sense of what way sicker was for myself, I went from 175 pounds to 114 pounds in the matter of 3 months. I didn't sleep for a solid 5 months. I had air hunger attacks, panic attacks, and mast cell activation syndrome, which if you're not aware of that, that's kind of like histamine all over the body, so you're allergic to everything. Our brains were on fire. What we did was we sat in an infrared sauna way too long. I was very ignorant of the power of an infrared sauna, and we sat in it way too long. Those microtoxins came out of our cells. We didn't know about binding and electrolyte supplementation, and so we were fried. And it was very difficult because, as I said before, I was used to pouring from an empty cup. So this was Mama Bear scared to death watching her son look like he was on his deathbed. And so I had to get home hospital for him through school because he could barely get out of bed. We had to move out and get remediated and go into an apartment. I hooked him up with an immunologist, did IVIG, which led to aseptic meningitis. And then I had to deal with the school system trying to get him an IEP, and a psychologist on that board tried to put Munchausen's by proxy on me. So I was in the same predicament he was, trying to manage all of this. And after about 18 months working with the functional medicine practice, it just wasn't sustainable. So it was, having a paleo diet, binding 3 times a day. I think at one point we were on 33 supplements a day. It just was not sustainable. And so about 18 months into that, I was still having mast cell activation syndrome pretty bad. I was down to 3 foods that I could tolerate. I was terrified to even eat, really. And I was having panic attacks all day long. And so I just happened to look in my email box, which was a total disaster, by the way, because I just was not functioning. And I saw this free webinar from mindvalley.com teaching Eden Energy Medicine. And so I purchased that. It took me about 2 weeks to get through it. And it was Donna Eden and her husband, David Feinstein, teaching the daily energy routine. And in Eden Energy Medicine, that's kind of like the foundation that we start with, because it's 8 exercises that you can modify in any way that you need to. I mean, I was practically bedbound when I started this, and it takes about 5 minutes to do. And I did it probably 2 or 3 times a day just because it felt so good. I felt like it was bringing me back to life. It was calming my brain inflammation. And within 4 to 6 weeks, my mast cell activation syndrome just melted away, and my panic attacks just totally melted away. I no longer had to take any of the medications or supplements that I was, reaching for all the time with this nervous system activation. And for the first time in 2.5 years, I ate in a restaurant. And so I was like, wow, there is something to this. And I had Hashimoto's thyroid autoimmune, and my antibodies on that just plummeted after doing this daily energy routine. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. All I did was use my hands because they work as magnets, and I did certain movements, and you don't even have to be able to get out of bed to do it. And so I started looking into their program, and it's a 4-year program. So I dove right in, and they had actually already started it. So bless her heart, Camille Pipolo, she's the faculty member for this local area. And she was so sweet. She got on Zoom with me for an hour and learned what I had already known from the Mind Valley class. And she said, well, we're having class 2 next week. Can you come in? And I was like, heck yeah, I can come in. So then that set the stage, and it's a 4-year program. And so the first 2 years you get your toolbox, and the third year we do 100 sessions and 6 demonstrations. So it really gets into your hands. And the third year, we also learn about cardiology protocols and different cancer protocols to support people going through cancer. And boy, it is really interesting to see the energetic things about cancer, like how it's formed and how it's metastasized. It puts a whole new picture on it, which is just beautiful. And the fourth year, they get into grid work, which is like our main scaffolding of our body, and also regression. So they don't put that until the fourth year, because if you start messing with somebody's grid before they're balanced, you're going to turn their life upside down. So that is how Eden Energy Medicine came to me. And a little bit about Eden Energy Medicine. Donna Eden, she is 82 years old right now. And when she was a young child, she was allergic to everything. She couldn't eat anything that grew out of the ground. And at age 16, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. At age 27, she had a heart attack. And at age 32, she had 5 doctors tell her to get her things in order because she wasn't going to live much longer. And by that time, she had already had 2 daughters, and she said, well, I can't leave this earth. I have to raise my kids. And she was a single mom at the time. And she didn't realize that everybody couldn't see energy. It's a gift, and she can see it. And she just thought everybody could. And she also didn't realize that the 9 energy systems that she was about to map out were already mapped out 5,000 years ago in ancient medicine. So she mapped out the 5 energy systems, and she cured herself of MS in 2 years. And one thing with autoimmune disease, which MS is it's all about getting that spleen meridian, our immune system, strong. And in the beginning, she could only get her spleen to stay strong for less than 2 minutes. So she's an amazing person. She vibrates really high on that level of consciousness, and just being around her, you can feel that. Her husband, David Feinstein, he is a clinical psychologist. He gained that through the United States, and he's big in the EFT world, the tapping world. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So they got together in 2006 and said, we need to spread this everywhere. And now I believe there's about 3,000 practitioners worldwide. There's also a couple of leaders over in the UK and in Europe. And yeah, so that's Eden Energy Medicine.
I don't think I made the connection. I knew that Donna Eden's husband, Feinstein, mm-hmm. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, David Feinstein. He's big in the ASEP too. Yeah.
Yeah. That I had met Dawson Church.
Yes.
Who had done, numerous studies about EFT, especially with PTSD
patients. Mm-hmm.
So, all of this bodily energy and higher consciousness, it's amazing how those intersect.
It
Uh,
really is. And it's so
yeah.
funny to hear David tell the story of when he learned about EFT. He was like, oh, come on, that doesn't work. And so it's fun to listen to his story.
Yeah. Well, if the times that I've seen you, and this is a little bit off the beaten path before I ask you about some of the more influential people, what it sounds like you've already mentioned a couple. Um, First of all, I'm wondering if you use particular kinds of tapping or energetic exercises for yourself on a continuous basis, and whether or not that is something that speaks to you when you're with a client.
Great question. So I learned about EFT tapping probably in 2019. And where I learned it from was Nick Ortner and his siblings on the tappingsolution.com. They also have like an app. And so when I first learned about it, now this was before I even knew about Eden Energy Medicine, um, I I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It really neutralized a lot of emotion and stuff. Yes, totally loved it. I kind of veered off on using it on a regular basis after I learned Eden Energy Medicine and MAP. It just, for me, it's a road that's just a little bit quicker. But in MAP, when we're guiding the superconscious and it gets stuck, we ask the superconscious, do you need help? And if it says yes, we then ask, do you need tapping? And it'll say yes or no. And if it says no, then we'll say, do you need eye movements? And it'll say yes or no. And then we go to breathing, and then we go to color. And so those are the help procedures in the MAP protocol. So yeah, it's everywhere, and it is, you're tapping on meridian endpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And also in somatic experiencing, they tap on certain places as well. And so it just helps to calm the body. And I love tapping. Tapping is marvelous.
This is not a question I had planned, but a lot of the conversations I have, even with some family members that have experienced some pretty significant health issues, there seems to be an interesting intersection between these physiological problems or illnesses and the call or the pathway into higher consciousness. How those intersect or interplay is a that's, I think, probably one of the reasons I do this particular podcast, is because we are mind, body, spirit. We're these whole beings. um, with your background in both kind of allopathic Western medicine and in energy medicine, what's been your experience with that personally and professionally? How those things seem to interplay all the time.
Yes, well, probably in year 2 of Eden Energy Medicine, it really came clear to me that emotion is behind all dis-ease. And so if you were to take the meridians out, meridians is just one energy system of 9 that we work with in Eden. If you were to take them out, they would all be one long string connected together, because they flow into each other. And so stuck energy is usually represented as like pain, or if it's not pain, then it's going to churn up disease in the spot that it's at. And that's why I think what was so interested in the 5 element system, because water, if you're imbalanced in water, which is the bladder and kidney meridian, you have a lot of despair. You can't move forward. You don't have courage. But if it is balanced, you are so open to new beginnings and courage, and you can see that in your perception. And then it moves into the wood element, which is the gallbladder and liver meridians. When those are out of balance, it's all about anger and resentment. If it's a yin So that's liver and gallbladder. Liver's a yin meridian, and that would be like anger at yourself. And gallbladder is a yang meridian. That would be anger towards somebody outside or something outside. And then we move into fire. And when that's out of balance, we have panic. When it's in balance, we have joy and peace. And then we move into earth. And when that's out of balance, we worry like crazy and our immune system goes down. And that's where the pancreas sits. That's where like diabetes is. And when that is in balance, we're nurturing ourselves, we're loving ourselves, we're grounded. And then it moves into the metal element, which is lung and large intestine. That's all about letting go. You know, our large intestines lets go of, you know, what we need to get out, right? And the lung meridian is all about grief. And when that is balanced, we have order, we have integrity and courage. And so there's so much emotion behind what our perceptions are and how we can behave, how we behave. And does that answer the question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, even in a little more specific way, I wonder if you pick up on, okay, somebody's having a particular pain, you know, whether it's lower back or a knee or a shoulder or something like that, and you pick up what maybe those emotions are or what the stuck consciousness is or what the stuck feeling is.
Yes. And so every muscle is innervated with a meridian, all of them. And so all of our meridians have like affirmations behind them. So like the stomach meridian is all about trusting the mystery of life. And I've had clients where they've seen the chiropractor, they've seen the physical therapist, they've seen all the structural pieces to it. But then we get into the emotional pieces that are behind wherever the organ is, wherever the muscle is. And yeah, that really kind of peels the layers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So most of this come from all learning is kind of self-learning. All educated people are self-educated. So I know that a lot of this comes from your own awareness, ability or skill or gift to be able to look in all these different directions. But have there been particular people other than the ones, or maybe in addition to the ones that you've already discussed, that have opened your um, or, or piqued your skills and gifts in this kind of a direction where you can see these things in a more clear fashion? Yeah.
Yes, the further I get and the more bodies I get to practice on, I definitely am starting to already know, like I have like a knowing, and I can just watch people walk or how they interact, and I can see, I don't know how to explain it. I can see like, I don't actually see colors or auras, but I get a sense of where they're at or what they're burdened with or how they're walking. Or yeah, I'm not sure if I'm answering that right. It's just kind of like a knowing. So for instance, I had a colleague with me not too long ago, and I just kept hearing her assemblage point is out. You got to fix her assemblage point. And it's not like a voice in my head, but it's just kind of like a knowing. And I was just like, okay, I'll talk about assemblage point. I'll ask about it. And sure enough, that's an amazing story that we can talk about when we talk about MAP. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you get any sense of that for yourself? Is it harder to read it for yourself, on yourself, or do you feel like it's just other directed?
Well, that's interesting because I was always so habitually pouring from an empty cup. And it has, because I have gone through this journey and healing my somatic body, I've been like my own experiment. So I'm not like, 100% there and here you go. I still have situations where I'm like, okay, what would I tell a client, right? Like sometimes it can get so loud. I'm like, what would I tell a client, and I'll do it. And then sure enough, it'll be helpful. Yeah. So the biggest thing I feel on my journey right now was discovering somatic experiencing. And so because it was so much about saving my son's life and not looking at myself, once I got a somatic experiencing coach, she slowed me down enough to get into my own body. And then that's when I learned about IFS work, parts. Like, I had no idea about parts. And then MAP is all about helping the parts. And so it all kind of just came together that way. And somatic experiencing, that coach was so amazing. Her name is Michelle Lee Neves. If you ever run into that name, she slowed me down enough. She was trained by Peter Levine and his program, that I was able to start knowing who I was. Like, I didn't even really know who I was. My identity was just gone. And so now I have an old picture of myself when I was 5 years old, and I'm like, that's who I was, and I'm getting her back. So once the somatic experiencing started really taking in and slowing me down, and then I was like, okay, I matter, and I need to get better to fill my cup before I can help other people. And so I'm pretty early in that process right now. But the last couple of months, it has just skyrocketed and given me some really miraculous sessions with people. So I'm really excited. Yeah.
I don't know that this is associated with transactional analysis and Eric Berne, but I have a couple of friends or old colleagues that were actually a part of the Rocky Mountain Transactional Association leadership for a period of time. Eric Berne is the guy that famously wrote The Games People Play.
Okay.
And yeah, and he talked about, the inner child, and it's never too late to have a happy childhood, kind of a thing.
Yes.
So what you're talking, and in fact, the MAP session that I had with you recently seemed to be retroactively interconnected with all of that. So you want to talk a little more about how you discovered MAP, or how it discovered you, and how that plays into your work as a practitioner with energy medicine?
Yes. So MAP really opened my eyes to the things that happen to us from 0 to 10, kind of sets the stage, with our predispositions and our protector controller parts. Yes, totally. And then MAP is all about neutralizing the negative emotions, the activated emotions, from traumatic memories or unpleasant memories, or memories we don't even remember because they were too overwhelming. In our subconscious, well, let me back up. The memories are 95% in our subconscious, our unconscious awareness. Only 5% of our awareness is 5%. And so memories, our behavior is from stacking memories. So like, for instance, if a child's learning how to feed itself, first it's going to take the fork and maybe go this way and dump all the food. It remembers that, right? And then it gets a little closer to the mouth, and then it finally gets into the mouth. And so our behavior is stacking memories. And so can't really recall what your actual question was, because kind of one question.
Yeah. So how did you discover this particular process of MAP?
Yeah. Thank you. So MAP, it was on my feed I probably saw MAP on my feed before the whole mold toxicity incident. And I was just always like, okay, I'll put that aside and see, what it's all about. I just don't think it was time for me to see it yet. And then once I left the marital home, and I was out of there for a year, I got my hours cut at the hospital, and it was difficult, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, this is happening for a reason. And MAP came across my screen again. And so I'm like, I'm going to jump into that. And I jumped into that at the same time, jumping into the somatic experiencing coach. And those two just went together so beautifully. And again, seeking something to help myself first actually has become so amazing to help others. And it just started peeling the layers. And so with MAP, we entangle energies with the client. And most of it is done online through like a Zoom or something like this. And I remember back watching Bradley Nelson, Dr. Bradley Nelson. He is the one that invented emotion code, body code. He's a chiropractor. And it was a shift network course. And there was probably 100 people in there. And so I was in there live and I saw that he could entangle energies with people and bring down their pain from like a 10 to a 0 in like less than 5 minutes. And he did that by entangling their energies, because energy does not abide by space or time. And so just like the petri dishes, of the cells in different parts of the world, from the same person, if you do something to these cells over here, the cells across the world are going to have the same effect. So it's like the quantum energy. And so it was really intriguing to me. And with MAP, we entangle our superconscious, which is also known as the subconscious, with the client's superconscious. And what we know and what we've learned can teach their superconscious what to do. And so we muscle test and we just ask their superconscious where things are going. They don't really have to say much, because we have a full algorithm of where the superconscious takes us. So like mindset barriers, memory barriers, parts, protector controllers, fields, there's a lot of generational fields all over the place, because it's like ancestral generational trauma. Events, beliefs, emotions, environment, anatomy, energy, routines. We can help people create new routines and take off the activation of the routine that they're in. We can help people make a decision about something by neutralizing, the options of that decision for them to figure out what is best for them. We can clear the genome family tree, like if, we have them create a whole genome, just like a family tree, and the superconscious will take us right there if we need to clear somebody in the past. And then the coolest thing about MAP is there's like a section where you can put whatever modality, whatever other modality And so that's where I put Eden Energy Medicine. So I really like my clients to have had both of the intro sessions, so we're like all hooked up. And so the superconscious will know this person needs one of your energy medicine techniques over here. And so a real interesting case that just happened probably 3 months ago, I was working with a colleague. We exchanged sessions. Her assemblage point was out of place. And just to let you know what an assemblage point is, it's and I'm reading because I want to make sure I say exactly what it is. And it was first found by Carlos Castaneda, and he was an American anthropologist and writer. And he wrote a lot about, he was Peruvian, and he wrote a lot about shamanism, training to be a shaman. And so Donna Eden can actually see the assemblage point. So they created a protocol to get that assemblage point back in its place. And so what an assemblage point is it's a sphere of energy that sits directly outside in front of your heart chakra, about arm's length away. And it bridges the soul with the consciousness, and it finds the energies that will connect to the people, events, and opportunities that will guide your path that you're supposed to be on. And so my colleague was here, and her assemblage point was out of place. She had gotten a grid fixed, and it bopped her assemblage point out. And so we found her assemblage point. It was, bless you. You're good. It was sitting in front of her root chakra. And as we did the protocol, there's preliminaries to do to make sure it's safe, because it's a pretty sacred thing to be messing with. And once we put her assemblage point back in front of her heart chakra, she got this really incredible feeling of fear. And the assemblage point jumped back to her root chakra. Well, I was able to then connect with her superconscious because she had had a MAP session with me. We went right into the algorithm, and the superconscious cleared a protector controller part when she was like 7 years old. And then we made sure that it was safe to put it back into place after we cleared that part. And as we were putting it back in place, it just jumped all by itself. And so if I didn't have MAP and the superconscious, I think that session would have went a whole lot longer. I mean, we have things in Eden Energy Medicine where we can deal with the emotions by different neurovasculars in the head. But if I didn't have MAP, we got that done in less than 15 seconds, after it fell back to the root chakra. And so I just love putting the two together. Yeah. And the assemblage point is really amazing. I remember when I learned about the assemblage point, it was in class 7 in the second year, and mine was shattered all over on the right side. Now, a lot of people's assemblage points aren't in front of them because, we live life. We have a stressful world and we've been through trauma. And when my assemblage point went in front of me, it totally changed my perception. I had a perception of, wow, life really can be good. It was just like, I'll never forget that day after class when my assemblage point was put back. I had so much new hope. I was so excited. Yeah.
So you don't have to answer this, but time frame, how long ago was that when you had that kind of seminal moment?
With the assemblage point being put back in place. So
Yeah.
that was 2021. That was probably June of 2021. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would have been just kind of like right after COVID and all of that.
Yes. Yes. And so my son and I, we were sick and housebound and struggling and surviving. 2018, 2019, and then 2020, COVID happened. And my son was like, "Are you kidding me?" And in hindsight, it was actually really good for us because we didn't have to jump into the world right away. And he was in like hybrid school, and so he was able to do school. Like, I really think that if we just jumped right back in, he probably would have been slapped right back down. But his friends and other people, like my friends, they would all say, like, whenever COVID happened, I think, everybody was secluded and it was all about, like not having interaction, which we all need. People would ask us, how did you do this? Because we'd been doing that for 2 years before COVID happened, right? So we were like, oh, this is easy. But at one point I felt a little agoraphobic at one point. Like, I was not wanting to even go to a grocery store. And I recognized that. It lasted about 2 weeks. And I just said, okay, I need to get out. So yeah, that was about 2021 when I learned about the assemblage point. Mm-hmm.
So, this is connected a little bit to the one of the other questions I wanted to ask about your pathway into pharmacy school, getting a doctorate, because that's heavily academic. Have you always had a sense of wanting to be kind of in the healing professions, or if you had, go ahead, talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So going to pharmacy school. I started working at age 13 because of the life that we had. My mom got out of her difficult relationship, and we finally got an apartment, and I was 12 years old. And so it was a difficult thing for her to manage. And this is kind of where I started developing pouring from an empty cup. And I was already kind of at a point where I needed to make sure everybody around me was safe for me to be safe. So I was already out of my body. And so it was really kind of searching to care for people, right? And my first job at 13 was working in a nursing home kitchen. And then with that nursing home kitchen, there was an assisted care facility next door. So it was just like, I worked there as well. And it was like having 50 grandmas and grandpas, and they were just so loving and so wonderful. And so, just helping them just brought so much joy to me. So I really enjoyed that. And then as far as like going into pharmacy school, I knew that I wanted to be in the medical field. I was strong in science and math, and I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. I knew I didn't want to go to med school. I just knew that that took a lot of time. And so I applied to veterinary school and pharmacy school at the same time. And I got into pharmacy school first. And the other reason why I chose those was because I wanted to have a career that made decent money, that I would never have to depend on a husband, as I watched my mother really struggle. If you've ever seen the movie The Burning Bed, that was my mother's story. If you've ever seen the movie Sleeping with the Enemy, that was my story. And so interesting that that's what I was trying to avoid. And then that's what I fell into. So the universe works a really neat path. And so I love hindsight. And I know that I had to go through all of that to get to where I am today, because I'm so happy and grateful that I know these modalities, because I'm doing something that I'm passionate about now. And yeah, so did that answer your question?
Well, yeah, and it's going to sound a little bit trite and maybe somewhat glib, but it's the best healers are like the wounded healer,
Yes.
people who've really been through it.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, I agree. I remember one of your podcasts, I think it was with your acupuncturist, Becky. You talked about the difference between a practitioner and a healer. And it really kind of got my mind spinning, like, kind of, oh, what is the difference there? And I think to myself, I just had a couple experiences with some minors, right? 15-year-old girls with their mother, of course, and that's kind of new for me. And after what I went through with my son, I was like, oh boy, what's this going to look like, And I think to myself, these kids are struggling so much with what am I going to be when I grow up? And I think to myself, well, let's show them this and see if they're, interested in this. And then I think to myself, would you even be interested in this if you haven't needed it yourself, And then some of the healers that I've seen in my journey, I would just be so enthralled with, and I would say, oh my gosh, your family must be so excited that you can do this. And most of them, they're like outcasted. Like their family just wants to do nothing with it. And it all shows me that people are ready when they're ready. Like you're not going to be able to bring a horse to water until they're ready, right? And so the whole experience in general just shows me everybody is on their own journey, and they're not going to see it until they see it. And then once you see it, you can't not see it. And so then you're on your journey, right? So it's all levels of consciousness, right? Like if somebody's really low in the shame level of consciousness, and somebody who's like really up here in the love trying to help them, it's just going to piss them off. Like I have been there. And me up here now, when I run into these people, it's really interesting in how I choose my words, because I know that if I start talking about things that I'm experiencing, that jealousy, that envy, that I don't deserve this. This isn't available to me. The darkness, and I don't even know all the words to describe it, but it just makes that layer heavier for them. So you have to meet people where they are. And the healers, practitioners, whatever you want to call them, that I met, they resonated kind of the same story. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, I understand that now. Like, bless my son's heart, but he doesn't want to hear anything about MAP or Eden Energy Medicine. And we went through a lot of medical trauma, and I do not blame him right now, but maybe one day he'll see the magic, right? But everybody has their own journey. And, there's 1,000 roads to Rome, and energy medicine and MAP might not be the person's road, but oh my gosh, like find the road, because it's so worth it. And I tell you, somatic experiencing, I think, is a good road for anybody. I think that might be my next visit, right? Because that really helped to slow me down. And so now that I'm slowed down and in my body, I can get the super conscious to work so fast that I'm actually, it's sharpening my intuition to where now my claircognizance is like, oh, okay, I hear it. I hear it. I really describe that, but yeah.
I have lived so much in my head, being an academic and,
Mm,
intellectualizing everything, that one of the items of wisdom that I think, gained from healers, particularly body workers, is that there's such an amazing array of non-verbal pathways to healing from the somatic side. It's just amazing how the body just knows.
yeah, the
And
body keeps the score, right?
yeah, yeah. And
Uh-huh.
you don't have to put it into words. You don't have to put
Yes.
it into some sort of a system or a framework. It just knows.
Yes.
And that's that. I'm fascinated by those people like you who have this intuition and intuitional connection with that nonverbal process and set of openings and how that all unfolds.
Yes. And who was it? Besser Vandal Kolk, Body Keeps the Score. That is a really interesting read. And the somatic experiencing piece and the parts work, the internal family systems with Richard Schwartz, that all just puts it all together. Because once you can get that mind connected to the body, things start working. So we have certain symptoms and we're angry about them, and then we'll go to Western medicine and put a Band-Aid on it, which can be helpful. I've had a couple of Band-Aids I'm very appreciative of, but that Band-Aid keeps you ignoring the noise, and that part that's trying to get your attention is going to get louder until you pay attention to it. And when we start doing parts work, it's really important to tell that part, I'm not trying to get rid of you. I'm trying to increase my capacity to be with you, because it can be so overwhelming to believe that this part of you went through what it did. And one thing with the superconscious that I think is so amazing is it often goes to a procedure about dreams. We have dreams. It's our brain's way of integrating memories that were too overwhelming for us to handle. And so when it goes to this dreams procedure, you don't even have to know the dream. I don't remember my dreams, but it'll always go to the dreams procedure, and it's neutralizing whatever you were trying to integrate at the time that it happened in your subconscious mind. So you don't even have to know about it. And it lets go some of the tension and the associations and the structures of the memories and the collages. It kind of lets go of all of that. So then those things can be neutralized as well. So the body totally keeps the score, because we can logically think about what we need to do, and our mind is racing 100 miles an hour, but our body's like, oh no, I don't agree with that. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm going to make you really anxious, and you're not going to be able to do that. So that parts work is what totally opened my world. That's the first thing that when somebody reaches out to me and wants to know, what does this look like? I always say, I'll say, try the daily energy routine. And then I always show them that book by Richard Schwartz, No Bad Parts. And I recommend that they get it in audio version, because at the end of some of the chapters, he does meditations, and so you can just lay back and, like, almost like you're with a therapist in the room, and it really opens you up that once you find a part, there's like 10 parts behind it, right? So I love parts work, and MAP is all about neutralizing those little parts. We create them all equal. they all have an equal say in how fast the treatment happens. Because so for instance, like everybody has to do an intro session. So we hook up their superconscious and train. That's what we did together. And then after the intro session, we can go full into the whole algorithm. But the reason why we do the intro session is for safety, to make sure that we don't flood the active experience and cause more activation. And so, yeah, it's beautiful work.
Do you get a sense at a distance of clients that you have seen or are seeing, what their experiences might be, so that you maybe have a little precognition or something? If they come and see you again, you kind of know what's been going on. Or even if you don't see them again, you have a sense of, okay, here's where they are.
Yeah, after every session, I make sure that I take a lot of notes of what happened. Whenever I'm in session, sometimes it's really hard to like write things down, right? Sometimes I'll just voice record, this is what happened, and I'll write it all down. And so I keep charts. And so when the person contacts me again, I'll see what we did. And then I will take the time to clear myself and then ask the superconscious to help me tap into that person and what they might need. Now, in the past, before I did MAP and I was just kind of doing sessions and I was still in my, entangled mess in my own personal life, I would become like so anxious, and I thought that it was my lack of confidence. But after a while, my confidence built with, the other things that I've done and the more clients that I've seen. But after a while, I realized, no, this is what's happening to this person, and they're coming to me, and my body is telling me what they need. So, for instance, I had a client that came and her aura was like a donut. So, a lot of times when we've been through trauma and we're hyper vigilant, your aura will detach from your body and to make sure that you're safe, right? And so I was preparing for this client and I'm like, man, why am I so anxious? And so I was like testing myself, and my aura, sure enough, my aura was like gone. And I'm like, why is my aura out? And so I brought it back in, did all the things that I needed to do. And sure enough, the client came and her aura was out of the street. So those kind of things I have to realize, a lot of empaths will say they feel everything, and not to label myself as an empath, but I guess maybe I am. It's not really fun, but I'm learning to say, okay, is this mine? And, help me feel better with it. But at the same time, oh, this could be a clue. Maybe I'll test these certain things and see if the client is experiencing this too. And 9 times out of 10, they are. So, yeah, it's interesting.
This is a question that's a little bit out there, but it kind of correlates a little bit with the title of this podcast. As we work with these individuals and we connect with other people who are healers or on this path of seeking, trying to recognize, realize higher consciousness, do you get the sense of the ripple effects that this might have, this kind of work that might have collectively, not just for the healing of an individual, but, a country, a nation, a planet,
Absolutely.
a cosmos?
Yes, absolutely. The further I get in this, the more I can see how it is all of the collective. The Eden Energy Medicine motto is raising the vibration one person at a time. Anytime I was in class in the MAP community, and they would say, we would like have a session, we would exchange sessions, and we would be neutralized and happy. They would always say, thank you so much for doing the work to raise the vibration of this planet. So absolutely see it as a collective consciousness. the acupuncturist that I told you about, I didn't understand why. How come I just sit in the room with him and I feel better, right? And so I knew that he didn't even have to put needles in me and I would get therapy, right? You can feel that energy. And just yesterday, I worked at the hospital, and it's crazy that I can see people's personalities and what they say and how they interact, and I'll kind of get like, oh, that's probably coming from a predisposition at age 7, or, just kind of all these little things in my mind, just quietly as I'm observing. But they will literally come to me and ask me certain questions about just therapy stuff. I'm like, I'm not a therapist, but this is what happened to me. And what was it the other day? The lead pharmacist said, I think Lee needs to just teach us all how to be nice. And I thought to myself, oh girl, if you only really knew my history. I was such an angry, mean, horrible person inside for so long. But it was kind of validation that I have peeled those layers and I have found my inner child, and I can actually feel the Holy Spirit inside of my heart. I can actually feel it now. I've never been able to feel that. It was always a mind thing, that's what I was taught. Okay, let me put that in my little chart, right? But now I can actually feel it. So when I work with clients, I access that light, and then I imagine like a cloak of light, just, and that power, that divine power coming through my crown chakra, because it's not me that's doing the healing, it's the divine energy in the quantum world. And that's the collective, right? That's the collective that's trying to get in and trying to help us all to increase our consciousness. And I'll just imagine pulling energy from that light, that cloak, and it just comes out my hands, and then my hands will start tingling, and then I can start feeling things on the body. So yeah, it's totally a collective consciousness. And I read not too long ago in A Course in Miracles, Marianne Williamson is one on my list, that the more people that raise their consciousness towards enlightenment, the faster time goes. Because before separation from God, we didn't need time or space, because we didn't need to prove that love wasn't real. Yeah, totally. It ripples out. Anything that anybody does to help raise their level of consciousness is rippling out. I 100% believe that, and I can feel it now. I can feel it. And so when I'm with my community in Eden Medicine, or my community with MAP, I can feel that positive energy. And then when I'm maybe at my muggle job, I call it my muggle job at the pharmacy. For those of you that know about Harry Potter, the muggles were the ones that didn't have magic. I call it my muggle job. It earns a good income, but I call it my muggle job. When I'm there, I can feel the lower vibration, right? I mean, these people are like in a factory. They're there 5 days a week. It is really kind of nuts working in a pharmacy. But I will say, I've been at the VA hospital outpatient pharmacy, and so it's a real different realm than like retail. You've got colleagues, pharmacists, technicians, nurses, doctors. So you're not like alone. You're not dealing with insurance company stuff. And the veterans are so amazing. Like whatever happens to them, they just don't lose their heart. And so just a little tiny sweetness of customer service, and you've got them melted. So yeah.
Well, you are doing such amazing work. I'm so glad I found you.
Thank you.
And a number of things you said, made me feel like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to schedule another session with you to get a little deeper or broader about some things. And I'm really hopeful. And I told you this, I had no pretense about maybe this being kind of a commercial for you. For people out there to be able to know about you and to know that this kind of work is accessible and handy. And I know that you do some sessions online, so it can be done remotely.
Yes. even Eden Energy Medicine can be done remotely. When we had, with COVID and everything, we had to figure things out. When flights were down, people couldn't come in from Canada and etc. It really put us online, and we realized, yeah, energy doesn't need space or time. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and actually, that's how this whole podcast thing came up to me. And I don't know, really who's going to be watching, how it's going to, but I do know that light, that energy, the frequencies get communicated, and that
Yes.
This should be a benefit to everybody, and I'm hoping it's a benefit to you specifically. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been a benefit just being on your podcast and sharing my story. When you asked me the question about who the most influential people in my life was, it was such a beautiful question, because I sat down and started writing it down, and it made me realize how many people the universe has brought on my path. Before I went into Eden Energy Medicine, I didn't even really know what a mentor was. I tried really hard to find mentors for my sons, but again, pouring from an empty cup, I was never looking at myself. And then the universe started just bringing them all in. And I've probably got a list of 20 in front of me right now that I could share. So thank you for asking that question, because yeah, there's a lot of really good people out there trying to raise the vibration of the planet.
Well, maybe that question was for you rather than for the podcast. I mean, that's how this stuff happens, right?
Totally.
Yeah. It's the Hogwarts magic that.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for doing this. I know that there are people that are sometimes a little reluctant to get on board because they feel like, oh gosh, we're putting ourselves out there. But I just know that this is going to be a benefit for a lot of people. So,
well, thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking about my journey, and I'm just so happy and grateful that this is where I'm at, because this was not where I was at for a long time. Yeah.
Well, no, you communicate good energy, and it's hard for me to even envision that you were in a dark, stuck place, but that's in the past. So I'm glad.
It is in the past. You're absolutely right. Only go into the future now. Present. The present moment of the future. And I did just launch my website yesterday. So my business name is Flipside Wellness, and it's flipside-wellness.com. And so I still need to kind of get in there and learn the ropes, but it's up and running.
Okay, good. Great. And probably one of the things we should do is, I think I can embed that in the podcast publication. So if you want to, email it to me again as I am putting these up for publication, I can put that in the little descriptor, and that way it might make it easier for people to contact you as well. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And for anybody that is watching, I just want to say there's 1,000 roads to Rome, and don't stop until you find yours. Yeah. Because it matters, and it's important.
Good benediction. Good punctuation mark for that. So, well, until next time, and maybe we'll have Virginia on again. I've had a couple of folks that we've needed to do a couple of podcasts because there just wasn't enough in the first one. So as you and I continue to interact, we'll see if that's a possibility. So
certainly. Thank you so much, Dan. This has been really, really fun. I really appreciate it.
Good. Okay. Well, this has been the Cosmic Consciousness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Sage. And until next time, peace, everyone.